Hello everyone. In this video, I will be talking about the short stories that you are assigned to read as preparation for your literary analysis essay. This is only a 15-minute video, so I'm gonna try. So if I'll need additional time to discuss these two stories, then this discussion will be posted in two parts, video 1 and video 2. Make sure that you view and listen to both uploaded videos. Okay. All right. So let's go into course content. I am in our home page right now. We are currently in module 1. Right. So let's see here. Okay. So let's go down and find your literary analysis essay assignment. You click on that, and you should see the reading list of 3 short stories. All right, I am assigning you Kate Chopping's The Story of an Hour and Flannery O'Connor's Good Country People. Kate Chopping's the story is not in your textbook, so make sure you click on the link right here. If you click here, you'll be taken to a PDF file of the short story, and make sure that you read it a couple of times in its entirety. The second short story is called Good Country People. This story can be found in your textbook on pages 264 to 278. Okay, you are required to read both short stories, but for your literary analysis essay, you will be writing on only one of the short stories. One of these two, but for reading purposes, you are required to read both of these short stories. Now, the third one is not an option. I mean, feel free to read it if you like Mark Twain, but I am not assigning you this. All right, so you are choosing you are choosing to write your literary analysis essay on one of these short stories. Okay. And down here, you'll see a general direction for the literary analysis essay. Right, you should be aware that all of your shorter essays in this class, your literary analysis, your cause and effect essay, and your persuasive essays, are all 500 words. Okay, are all 500 words, and so we're starting with the literary analysis essay, and these are general essay prompts that you can apply that you can use as a focus for your literary analysis essay. So you can choose any one of these questions as your essay prompt, as the focus of your essay, and you can apply any of these questions to either one of these texts. Okay, I hope that is clear to you, but there are additional writing topics, questions or questions and essay prompts that are more specific to the stories themselves. So if you clicked on the next item where it says additional writing topics for literary analysis essay, here I provided, okay, your assigned short stories are these two, and these are specific. These are questions about specifically about the short story themselves, whereas the questions that appear in the essay assignment are more general, and they're meant to be general enough to be applicable to any short stories. Okay, so if you want to choose any of those general essay prompts or any of these more text specific or short story specific essay prompts, you are welcome to do so as long as your essay has a specific narrowed focus. All right, so let me back up a little bit since we're discussing the literary analysis essay, and please don't start to write, okay? And I'll talk a little bit about the process, but let's go here. It is very important that before you start to think about any of the essays, let alone to start writing it, in any module, we are in module 1, right? You need to revisit this page, which is one of the first items posted in all modules. And this page is called General Guidelines for Course Compositions. It's very important that for each essay, you revisit this page, right, to keep in mind the general guidelines that you should be applying to all of your essays, because in the event that you don't, or if you miss, or if you fail to follow any of these guidelines, of course points will be deducted. So this item right here, if you look at my cursor, general guidelines for course compositions, college level composition criteria, let's see what else. All right, as well as module reading assignments, every single module in this course, modules 1, 2, 3, right, will begin with these items. Okay, so if you look through all 3 modules, you'll note that the first 3 items that you see, or the first 3 or 4 items that you see, are these. Okay, and they are the same thing posted, 3 times over because they are important. They're posted as in every module as a reminder for you. So make sure, like I said, that you visit these general guidelines. So let's go over them real quick. All essays must have a logical development and appropriate structure. All essays must follow MLA style, format, and guidelines according to their specific rhetorical mode. All essays must meet the established word count length minimum and research requirement if applicable. Essays that require outside source material should not contain more than 20% of quotations or unoriginal content. And this guideline will be referred to as the 20% rule henceforth in this course. All essays must undergo the revision and editing process. All essays, now this is very important, all essays must not contain any first person or second person pronouns or their reflexive forms. For each of such pronouns present, a 1-point deduction will be applied. What this means is that in any writing that you do in this class and submit for grade, you should not use any forms of the first person or second person pronouns such as I, me, you, your, us, we, or the reflexive forms such as myself, yourselves, ourselves. Okay, those are all considered informal. Those would be informal expressions in your writing, and you don't want that. Okay, third person pronouns are absolutely okay to use. Okay, such as it, he, she, or they. Okay, all of those are fine because third person pronouns are more distant, whereas first person and second person pronouns connote some kind of informality or closeness, and you don't want that in formal academic writing. You always have to maintain that rhetorical distance, so no direct address, no direct announcement. Okay, you have to convey your essay in a rhetorically appropriate style. Okay, so that's just a quick quick digression from the main point of my lecture, which is to focus on the literary analysis essay. So let's go back. Let me see here. I want to see additional writing topics. So I've covered literary analysis essay, additional writing topics. Okay, so here they are. I've taught Good Country People for much longer than I have taught The Story of an Hour. So I have come up with, so I have more, of an extensive list of text-specific or story-specific questions for Good Country People for you all to consider. And you can only pick one of these, right? Because you have to have a focus in any essay, and each of these questions is meant to kind of frame. Is meant to give you a focus. It's meant to give you a perspective in which you can view the text and understand and interpret and understand the text, your short story. Okay, so you just pick one, and your essay will focus on what the prompt is asking you to consider as far as the story is concerned. All right. Okay, so let's go back here in the literary analysis essay assignment, and let's just start discussing the story of an hour. All right, so I'll click on this link, and it should take me to a PDF full text link of the story of an hour. I've read it, and I expect you to have read the story before you listen to this video. If you have not, pause the video and come back to it at a later time when you have read and when you have already read the story, so that you can understand my discussion of it better. All right. And the thing about analyzing literature is that you cannot expect to analyze effectively any work of literature without having read it at least 2 or 3 times, right? Because to analyze something means to look at something closely. And if you've only read a text, a literary text once, that's not enough to give you enough to give you an intimate knowledge of the text, because the idea is you read a text once for a general understanding of what's going on, okay, for some kind of an orientation. You read a text a second time, with a more with the purpose of paying more details, and with the purpose of paying attention to more specific details that somehow stand out to you, because these details should help you to understand the significance or the meaning of the text in some way. These details that somehow jump at you from all the other details in the text, right, should together help you to make some meaning out of the text, what it means, right, and so forth. All right, so the whole purpose of analyzing literature is, to make sense of it, okay, to make sense of it, to come at an educated guess, to arrive at an educated guess about about the purpose and meaningfulness of the text. What can you learn from it? What is the purpose for this text's existence? What can I learn from it? What is it trying to tell me as a reader about life, about anything in life, or about its subject matter? Okay. All right, so the story of an hour, I'm going to give you a brief summary of it, and then we'll discuss it according to the questions that I've given you as your essay or writing prompts. Okay, so the story of an hour is set in in New England. Well, I'm just assuming that it's New England because Kate Chopin is from New England. I think Kate Chopin is from New England. I'm gonna have to check up on that, but I think the time period is sometime in the late 1800s, right? And sometime in the late 1800s. This story is about a Mrs. Louise Mallard. It's about Mrs. Louise Mallard's reaction to the news of her husband's death. Her husband travels for work, and during this time period, one of the most popular mode of transportation is the railroad. It's taking the train to get from point A to point B. And apparently, Mrs. Louise Mallard's husband, I think his name is Richard. No, not Richard. Brantley. Yes, Brantley. Her husband Brantley, apparently it was reported that her husband Brantley was killed in a train accident, right? And the news is brought to her by one of his friends, Mr. Richards. All right, and of course, outwardly, Mrs. Louise Mallard looks as you would expect any wife would look upon hearing the news of her husband's death, outwardly, right? She wept, she seemed immobile, and just based on her on how she looks, right, one could say reasonably that she's in grief and in shock, right? But then she goes into her room, And then she starts to, and she doesn't say much or have any other outward expressions besides besides